Hi,
Hi.
good morning to
Good
United States.
good morning. Well, good. Is it good afternoon more like or good evening?
Well, it's more like a good evening. It's 8:30 p.m. in New Delhi, India.
Well, good evening then in that case.
Thank you. So, how are you today, Aden? I gave a quick introduction about you, which was, how you're a clinical neuroscientist and author of your upcoming book, the book on mind training. And how you are creating you're the founder CEO of Mind Medication, a fusion of neuroscience, psychology, and spirituality based mindset coaching and speaker service that
Mhm.
helps you uncover your why, unlock potential, and free limiting beliefs to achieve your impossible desires. That is phenomenal. That is something I'm so excited to talk about. So what is exactly that it is? Can you tell more about it?
Yeah, so just to my medication is essentially like a neuroscience and psychology. So how it really came about is obviously I studied clinical neuroscience back in London, and then I studied psychology here in the US as well. And I went into pharmaceuticals, I was a trial manager, I did clinical research, but there was something within that was just telling me this isn't how I want to serve. There was a missing part, and so I kept going and kept going, but I was also comfortable with life as it is, the materialistic life. And so I didn't really make that shift until I got divine intervention in a moment where about 3 years ago I was asleep and I just woke up, so to speak, with this life force energy. It was like, you need a business. I was like, I do. I didn't realize I needed that. And so that's really how it all came about with my medication, is that I really utilize my existing knowledge and experience within the
Mhm.
sciences, but also my high intuition with infinite intelligence and spirituality to blend the two. Because in order to really tap into your desire or your purpose or your greater goal, you really need to understand the science and the spirituality. They're one and the same, it's just different languaging. And so what I do is I blend the two and help my clients to really break free. So it's really about breaking free from limiting beliefs. And how I do that is looking at the language patterns, making sure that you're speaking words of life, whether that's in your entrepreneurial journey or whatever it is. And so I use like mindset tools that I create to really help an individual to really push past the limiting beliefs that they have. And so that's really like how my medication came about.
Amazing. And it is so it's what is interesting here is that it has got like the science to it, and
Yes.
then there's the spiritual sciences, so to say, and it's like a amalgamation of both to produce results.
Yeah, because what I learned also in my journey of evolution, so to speak, is that in order to really get into awareness, we need to have that mind, body, spirit paradigm tapped in. And so in our modern world, it's very much high on, get your body right, do all these exercises, train, etc., etc., or get your mind right through meditation, and that's all great, but there really isn't this emphasis on the spirit. Like we've sort of drifted away from that. Scientific realm, but also spiritual, because people gravitate to different ways of understanding these things. And so it's really the same. But as a scientist myself, I would also want to understand the why of why does this work. But also being spiritual, I also understand some things are just intuition based, and you can't really put a scientific term to it. And so really by bringing the two together, it really helps whether that's my clients or my students, to understand how it really works as much as possible, so they can really shift past any limiting beliefs that they may have, whether that's creating a business or just really anything that they're endeavored to do.
That's very interesting. So, how you are really doing this? Could you share an example or maybe some of the results that your clients produced using this kind of technology, I would say?
Yeah, absolutely. So I created a model called the Calm Mindset System. So it's clarity, accountability of goals, love, and motivation. And so my clients go through these systems, and it's a framework. I don't really like to put hard rules because everyone's on a journey, but these are the frameworks
Mm,
that I get my coaching clients, my consulting clients, so forth to go through. And what they gain from this is ultimately a calm mindset. And why that's
mhm,
important is that when we're making decisions, especially big life decisions, our brain is designed to protect us, our animal instincts. And so it with the calm mindset, what it does is really shift past that amygdala, that fear-based thinking, and really think from the prefrontal cortex, our executive brain. And so by staying calm, one is my clients have been able to really make decisions by having been able to really assess the situation from a 360 angle. And so they're able to not only have a calm mindset overall, but they're able to really become productive, results oriented, really creative and confident, and really achieve their desires in the path of least resistance. So when a person is really calm, then everything is under control. So self mastery is really important. And one way to do that is really having a calm mindset.
So amygdala is the fight or flight
Yes, yes,
brain.
that's
Yeah, it's the human responses.
brain that's always there to really preserve and protect you. And so, and it's great when, there's real danger about, but when there isn't danger, it becomes a problem. And especially with limiting beliefs is that it preserves, it wants to protect you from fear, but that fear is an illusion. So things that, there's legit fears, and then there's fears we create for ourselves. So I'm
Hmm.
afraid to fail. That is a fear I've created for myself based on the words and languaging that I've programmed into my brain. And so what I do with my clients is really look at that to understand the root cause of that word pattern that you program, for example, and then
Hmm.
use also NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, to really break free. So talk to the subconscious mind to release that language pattern and replace it with something more affirmative and powerful, and then really get into being calm, but also powerful and confident to really achieve your desires.
Got it. So it's when only when it's like a big decision is when the amygdala takes over. Is that?
Not just big decisions, but it kicks off a lot on there. But it's even just incremental decisions, life decisions that we make. Anything that we have to make a choice, it is always designed to protect us. If it looks unfavorable, so for example, I was in a very comfortable position. I was working in the pharmaceuticals. I made the money I needed, etc. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't pursuing my divine mission, right? And so
Hmm.
for me to shift from pharma to entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
obviously my ego, my amygdala is going to kick in and say, why would you do that? There's no logical sense for you to give up everything you have to
Hmm.
become poor or perceived as poor. As we know, the entrepreneurship game at the beginning is not pretty. So
Hmm.
that's when I really had to fight the ego, really had to fight that fight, flight, freeze response, and really get in that headspace of being calm. And the way I personally also did that is the same way, is by reaching out, seeking knowledge, seeking expert knowledge, getting mentored, coached, and so forth, to really get into that calm headspace, to then really rationalize, why is it that I fear this? Why am I afraid to be an entrepreneur? What is the positives that can come out versus the negatives, and really have that conversation internally but also externally to really make that shift. And so it's not that our amygdala is bad. I think it can serve a purpose, but
Hmm.
overall, like, it can also limit you and I from really pursuing our higher mission if
Got
it's
it.
not. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So, I mean, yeah, amygdala is there to protect us. However, it's like when we get too, I would say, used to our comfort zone
Exactly.
and success in life, or so to say, kind of begins at the end of our comfort zone. And that's where the flight or fight response take over, because that's what kind of takes us back to the original phase, or what we are usually used to.
Yeah, I mean, it's only natural that it wants to preserve and protect us, but nothing great comes from the comfort zone. It's comfort for a reason, right? It's a period of
Mm,
stagnation. If it's comfortable for too long, what happens? It's
mm,
stagnates. But also for our brain, what happens is then we stop learning, we stop acquiring new skills, we start being efficient because we get too comfortable. And so to
mm.
really shift past requires really expanding the network, whether that's the people you hang around with, whether it's the knowledge you're acquiring, but also really going inwards as well to really identify what inner demons do I have? What limiting beliefs do I have? What are the things I've told myself I can't do? And really working on that to really clear that, so that that comfort zone is no longer really viable. It becomes stagnant rather than comfortable.
Yeah, and that's what kind of shows up in our lives. Whatever I have a deep down inborn belief is what shows up as my reality eventually. So, for example, if we believe that hard work is the only way to success, we keep on working hard, or working a 17, 18-hour day would lead to a higher wage or a higher money. So we eventually end up being in that cycle where that's what our belief is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the formula that I always tell my clients and my students is really simple. Thought plus emotion equals behavior. So if I am a workaholic, which I used to be in the past, really
Hmm.
it was thought I've ingrained, and also living in a Western world where, at least in America, where it's you've got to
Mm.
work 24/7, even if you're in your
Yeah.
death. That is the mental programming I've ascribed to, whether that's internally but externally, excuse me. And so that plays out in the emotion of that fear that if I don't work, if I don't put in these aggressive hours, I'm not going to reach the result. And then what happens in terms of the behaviors, then I'm highly stressed. I probably have anxiety, pressure, but also I'm not showing up the way I want to, because I forced myself into this belief system that that is the only way to succeed, which is really ridiculous because we are all infinite beings, right? And so I don't really have to work that
Mm.
hard to achieve results. Now, don't get me wrong, work is required, but it's how it's done and why it's done that's really important. So right now, I work because I want to work, right? Versus I
Yep.
have. So it's the words. Why am I
Yep.
doing it? Purpose. So I do this business. My it's my passion. It's my passion to help people, to really help them elevate their thinking and leadership. That is something
Mm.
I've realized is ingrained within me, and so I'm really just expressing that. And so there isn't this resistance. And so what that does is, like, when I coach and mentor, it naturally flows, the things I have to do. But if I am placed in a position that isn't my natural gift, or isn't a
Hmm.
place I want to be, I've conditioned myself to thinking fear-based, that I have to be here because there's no other alternative, that if I branch out outside the comfort zone, I'm going to fail. So it's really
I'm losing you here. Are you there? Check. Is it my connection or is it your connection? I
yeah.
lost you there.
So
I'm sorry, I lost you there.
oh, okay. So I don't really know what was last discussed, but I think it was just that formula, why it's so important that the
Mm.
thought is the original thought. I mean, even Napoleon Hill says thoughts of things. So if I start to speak in
Mm.
positivity, then those will
Yeah.
pan out eventually. And if I start to think in poverty, whether that's in just the way I think about work or career or
Mm.
just personal relationships, that will also pan out. It's really the original source is, what am I thinking? And is it serving me or not?
Yeah. What we think about, we bring about. I mean, I read that somewhere, and that stayed with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So during your transition from from what you were working as in the scientific industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, is that what you
Yeah,
said? From
yeah.
there to an entrepreneur and helping people here, what kind of challenges did you face?
Oh, many. What didn't I face? So I think that the beginning was, I didn't have a business background. Like I said, I'm more
Mm.
science inclined. And so when I had that epiphany that I really wanted to have this business, and that really goes back to actually even my 6-year-old vision, is that always said to myself, I'm going to be my own boss. And I used to have this, interesting conversation with my grandmother, who's
Wow.
very fictional, like, you just need to be a 6-year-old. I'm like, no, just you wait, grandma. I will show you. So that it's just funny how that really came about now. And I think the challenges I faced with, one is obviously people telling me this is ridiculous. Why would you give this up? Like, you've worked in so hard to get your neuroscience degree. So I've had 3 degrees. Why would you give all that up to do what? To do nothing? And so it was really about, first is shutting down negativity. that was my
Mm-hmm.
first thing, is that I need to now create a new circle. I look at it from like this thing of red, amber, and green. So my goal is to really have a green circle. Green is positive, it's go. If I have amber, if I have friends who aren't for me but they aren't against me, they also have to go, because that energy is going to affect my desire and my mission. And then the red, well, obviously they've just got to go because they're toxicity. So it was really clearing that out. And it was hard at first because there, that involved personal family members, also relationships that I had that I really had to break from. And that really required a lot of mental training to be able to do that and to come to terms to accept. But also, I think from an entrepreneurial lens, it was also just about how I have limited funds. How do I start this business? There's all these startup costs, and I just didn't want to invest my limited savings onto that. So I really had to think outside the box. And I was fortunate enough to have lived in this place called the Collective. So it's a co-living, co-working space. And one of the great things that they had was this skills exchange program. And so
Wow.
I really thought about it, and I was like, well, a minute, I can get my website, my logo, my coaching program, all this done through skills exchange, because as great as money is, that isn't our only capital. There's other
Yeah.
ways in which we can leverage, right? And so for me, it's, I've got these skills. I can mentor, I can coach. And in exchange, I can get my website done. I can get my logo done. I can get all these startup nuances done without money involved. And that's exactly what I did. So that really saved me a lot of money then to invest that money into places where maybe perhaps getting a mentor is more important, and putting in that money, right? Because this is going to be a long-term investment. So where I could see that my skill can really pay for things that, doesn't require money, I did that. And that was one way I overcame the challenges of the startup world. But another thing is actually acquiring specialized knowledge. And this is important because, and even Napoleon Hill talks about the need for specialized knowledge, is that like I said, I don't have a business background. So the very first thing I had to do is acquire this. But I want, me being a strategist, and the way I think is very much, I need to do this in a very efficient manner. And so before I start this journey of entrepreneurship, it was very important for me to spend, I think I spent about 3 to 4 months of aggressively learning. So I dedicated a lot of time going to seminars, workshops, getting coaches and mentors, because it was important for me, one, not to make mistakes that have already been made. I want to create new mistakes. I don't want to be making things that, that are already there. That's a waste of time for me. And so the way I could really learn about these mistakes, pitfalls, but also ways to do things, is to surround myself in environments of education, and very specific education. So it's not about learning anything and everything. It's, I'm learning things that are going to help me with my desire, with my why, with my purpose. I'm not going to go and take a course just because. It's very focused, right? So specialized knowledge is really important. And obviously the way I overcame that is really, there's a lot of free seminars that are obviously available. So at the time, I made sure I signed up to as many of them as possible and was there, but also leveraged the connection. So one, I was learning, but two, the bigger perk was, by being in these free seminars, actually I've tapped into a mastermind group or network of potential. And so what I did was not only learn, but have a new group of networks. And so it's really pushing past the boundaries. And some of these people I've coached in as a result, or they've supported me in some endeavor or another. We've done some skills exchange. And so I think the challenge is that to not look as a challenge as being a limitation. When we have problems, especially in the entrepreneurial journey, it really requires creativity. It requires thinking outside the box. And so one of the ways I've personally done that is to really become resourceful and to think about it. Is this really a challenge, or is this an opportunity for me to step up my game and to leverage what I already have to really push past this challenge?
That's a great way to kind of, look at when you're in that diversion. Is that a challenge or an opportunity?
Yeah.
That's one way you set your mind to it. Specialized knowledge for sure. I 100% endorse on that. And the way, you are connecting with these people who are showing up at those seminars, kind of your vibe attracts your tribe. So those are the kind of people with the similar mindset, functioning at a similar frequency, at a similar energy level, is what we end up kind of, mingling with and creating greater with.
Absolutely.
So when all of this was happening, what exactly motivated you? How did you motivate yourself to kind of keep on going? Because this is something that is absolutely new. If I am thinking from your point of view, this is something that is absolutely a new space.
Absolutely. So I think with motivation, for me personally, I'm internally motivated, so that helped. But I think with motivation in general, just to do a little bit of teaching, it's really important to understand how you're motivated. So for me, I'm naturally intrinsically motivated. For others,
Hmm.
it may be extrinsically. So it's important to understand, are you internally and externally motivated? Because then the way to motivate yourself changes. But for me, for example, knowing that I'm internally motivated, what I really had to then do is start to identify my why. Why am I doing this? What is it for? Because when demotivation kicks in, that is what I remember. This is why I'm
Got
doing
it.
it. But also by doing the things that I love. So because I don't really receive motivation externally as much, I had to go inwards. What are the hobbies and activities that really make me happy, that really make me feel accomplished and results driven? And so it's about really doing more of that. So just to give you an example, funny enough, art really helps me. So doing art, because then I get more creative. And in that time that I'm relaxed and calm, I start to get ideas of how I could improve my business. So it just sounds really silly, but things that really make us happy and are internally just pleasing, these are the activities I started doing more of. And now I just have in my timetable time dedicated for my hobbies, period. Because I know that it's not just fun and games. This is the way I'm going to stay motivated, is that by dedicating some time to doing these activities, I help
Hmm.
myself with my business, I help myself with my relationships, and I stay motivated continuously. But also, I know that there's certain challenges I faced where my internal drive was no longer enough. I needed to have external validation. And so, for that, what really helped me was really understanding my love language. How do I like to receive motivation? How do I like to feel loved? Because love and motivation go hand in hand, right? In a way.
Okay.
And so for me, it was quality time. I love having quality time with a very select few people. And
Hmm.
that, after that conversation I may have, I start to feel energized, right? And so when I realized that quality time is like really high on my list and words
Hmm.
of affirmation was not so great, what I started
Hmm.
to do was make sure I had touch base meetings with my mentor, with my coaches, and just my tribe of people that I could really trust with this entrepreneurial journey to really bounce back ideas. And so I
Hmm.
have that created in my timetable, because it's my motivation timetable, especially when I can't
Wow.
motivate myself. That's how I get that. And so with motivation is really understand, are you internally motivated? Are you externally
Hmm.
motivated? But even so, you will need either or. And so understand that, but also not basing my results on, like, my rewards on results, but the long duration. Because with motivation, it's an endurance game. And so it's
Hmm.
really important for me and for others to base results on the long term destination rather than
Yep.
I have to have this short term result. And if I don't get it, I'm not going to be a success. Because what that does for the mind is then it really limits it. So if my only form of motivation is getting an XY result right here, right now, I can't think of ways that I can really then stay motivated if that result doesn't pan out. So by
Hmm.
being really open minded and really looking at the long haul, that allows for resilience and self discipline to be nourished. And really, to sum it really all up, motivation has really played a key role in my daily practices, so my daily habits. So I really
Hmm.
had to create these, I call them power habits, in the
Hmm.
morning and at night, that really help me to stay motivated and resilient. So in the morning, I have about 3 hours where I dedicate to self-care, mind, body, spirit, learning, all these modalities that really help me to be pumped up. And so when
Hmm.
I start doing business, I have that energy and that motivation and drive to want to help people. But also at night, when I'm tapped out, whether that's spiritually, emotionally, energetically, I have a night routine that then just really calms me down, and then I can go back to sleep. And so what happens is it's a sandwich exercise. So my motivation is high, it's high,
Hmm.
it's high. And if it dips, I have mindset tools that I use to really pick me up. And so really the daily habits that we have will play a role in how motivated we will stay. So everything will require is persistence. You have to work hard. That is part of the game, but how you work hard will depend on how you see the reward and what you're willing to put forth to really sacrifice to make that happen.
God, that's very interesting how you have like your a 3 hour morning routine. Is that what you said? Like
Yeah, so
power
it's
habits.
an hour and a half to 3 hours depending on my schedule. So I map out my week in advance.
Wow. Hmm.
One way I stay motivated is that if I know, for example, I have this
Hmm.
IGTV interview, I can plan accordingly. I have other
Yeah.
interviews I have, so mapping that out really helps me. But in
Hmm.
order to manage all the different competing priorities, the best way I can stay in that calm mindset that I spoke to you about and that theta
Hmm.
creative frequency is then to do these routines that really power me up. So it's really feeding my mind, my body, my
Hmm.
spirit. I'm ready to
Hmm.
go. And then the same at night.
Would you like to share some of the habits out of your
Yeah,
routine?
sure. I think so for me, like what, no matter what, I look at it from a three quadrant of mind, body, spirit. So if I'm really busy, I'll just shorten it down. So some of the
Hmm.
things I do for mind is I do meditation, but there are days where I'm so tired. So I do a binaural beats meditation. And I don't know
Hmm.
if you know, it's the frequency. So it's meditation on fast drive basically, because the frequency of the binaural beats speaks to the brain, and so it matches it up very quickly as opposed to a traditional meditation where a lot of awareness and focus is required. I can
Hmm.
simply listen to a binaural beat, stare out the window, or do something else, and it will get my frequency from beta, which is that thinking energy frequency, to alpha and theta very quickly. So that is one way I do it, or I will do a very standard meditation as well. Walking meditation. So there's a variety of tools. I do these
Hmm.
things for my spirit called love letters to God or prayers. And so my prayers are very like I will just talk to the universe. It's not this very traditional bog standard way of doing it because I'm not a traditional person. I like to have a creative flair, so I'll have a conversation. And that way it allows me to be more expressive to infinite intelligence to get the answers and wisdom I need. And then for body, I do some yoga. I do
Hmm.
flow yoga in the morning just because that is a very easy way to really connect the body and mind to really
Hmm.
flow that energy as well. But I also do Pilates, various other exercises, and then I journal. And that helps me with my writing skills, but it also helps to get all the mental baggage from my
Hmm.
mind and onto surface. And that is so important as part of gaining a calm mindset is clearing the clutter. And that is one way I do that, as well as doing gratitude. So gratitude is very powerful for
Hmm.
life. And why that's important is that if you think about it, even just from the brain, if I'm vibrating at a low frequency, when I give thanks to infinite intelligence and the world around me, slowly that shifts because I become happy, I become grateful, and I'm joyful.
Hmm.
It starts to get higher in that theta frequency and alpha frequency, and so then I start to receive answers that I probably wouldn't have received if I'm thinking negatively. So gratitude is a must, no matter what happens on a daily basis. I give
Hmm.
thanks, but I make sure I give thanks because I want to give thanks, and it's not
Yeah.
forced. Right.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that I do, and I do affirmations, but my affirmations are slightly different. I call them I am affirmations. And why
Hmm.
that's important is that even in psychology, so there's this theory that, you've got consciousness here and then you've got identity, right? And every single thing after that doesn't matter because the identity impacts the environment, impacts the behavior systems, etc. But one above is consciousness, which is infinite intelligence. So the best way to change an outcome, whether that's a language patterning or a behavior, what have you, is to go directly to the identity level. And that, in
Hmm.
terms of the language, is I am, because that's me. So if I am, for example, fearful, instead of saying I am fearful, I say I am powerful or I am fearless. And I repeat that every single day while looking in a mirror or an object that gives me that attention. And what that does to the subconscious mind is it speaks to it. It's saying, Aden, I'm talking to you. Stop
Hmm.
repeating this language pattern of I'm fearful. We're now changing that programming to I am powerful, I am fearless. And that daily practice is required because the subconscious mind is wired to take the negative before it takes the positive. And so that's why I have to repeat it every single day until I convince my subconscious mind that, oh, Aden is no longer fearful. So she's fearless. Here you go. And then it gives me the results of how I could be courageous and fearless. And so the I am affirmations are powerful, and then engaging the emotion. So it's not just saying I'm fearless. It's really believing that emotion is required to convince the mind to really move forward. So these are just some of the things that I do to help me.
That's spectacular. In fact, I have had a couple of IG lives with some amazing, amazing people who are doing amazing in their respective lives, careers, coaching, consulting. And the habits that you shared are something that are so sacred to
Right.
each one of them, even me. So, for example, my gratitude in the morning, my yoga in the morning, and meditation, all of these, it's like a part of me now
Right.
that, the day feels incomplete unless I kind of do it. However, a new thing that I've learned in this conversation, what I'm going to also look up is the binaural beats
Yeah.
meditation.
Yeah.
Because at times it's more of like a thing that I need to check off my list, which does not kind of serve the purpose a lot of times. So, I might want to check that out.
Yeah.
Also, what you mentioned was very interesting is the love languages. So, a lot of people who are watching this, there are 5 kinds of love languages. And this is somewhere where each of us as a human being kind of perceive loved. So some of them it is quality time, like for Aiden. For me, that is words of affirmation. It's like 37%. I was on the words of affirmation. I was crazy. So what would you like to say about that? How can I get more of that when I am in the state of motivation?
Yeah, so it's really about your communication. First, do your love
Mm,
language. Who are you? Because there's two, right? There's your primary and your secondary, and the rest is really not that important. So, words of affirmation is your first one. What's your secondary? So then, when you know that,
mm,
to communicate that out to your loved ones, to your colleagues, to your people, it really
mm,
is important because you're basically telling people, this is one way I need you to hold me accountable with my
mm,
purpose, with my desires. And so when you
mm,
tell that individual, whether that's your family or colleague, that this is my love language, then it's
mm.
on them to also understand, oh, well, if this is, I've wasted all my time giving gifts when really words
Yeah,
of affirmation what's
yeah.
important. Okay, well, good job. So they know as well. And so what that does for the communication is it
Mm,
harmonizes it, but for motivation, it increases because you're now just receiving naturally the things that you need. And it doesn't become a resistance of, okay, I'm going to get accountability partner, but they're going to tell me the things that that doesn't
mm,
really motivate me. So it's really about, it really helps to make the communication for your motivation streamlined by being clear about what your love
mm,
language is, but also for you to then also understand that you've got to reciprocate, right? You can't have
mm.
one without the other. So how does then your loved ones need that back and being intentional
Yeah.
to get that back? So for me, it's not really natural. I mean, I wouldn't say natural, but it's definitely taking me time to say words of affirmation because I just assume that they just know I care about them, that they're
Yeah.
great. Right? And so
Yeah.
it takes that inner work to realize, oh my goodness, so my partner needs words of affirmation to be motivated. I'm gonna make sure I do this because now I understand how they're motivated. It's gonna become a must for me rather than I just assume you would be motivated, right? So it creates that relationship harmony as well, and really helping
Mm.
both to really prosper in their motivation.
Yes, yes. And I recently, discovered these love languages, and it was absolutely made a lot of sense because all this time people were gifting me, and I wasn't as grateful. Like, I was like, okay, but when I used to receive some kind of a compliment or like a good job, well done from my father or, from my family, I used to be elated.
Yeah,
But this kind of puts it, like a structure to it or something
absolutely.
that kind of explains it.
It's, overall, join masterminds, I would say, for the motivation, and
Mm,
just don't base your motivation on a result because that could change. The universe is such that results shift, and so by being flexible is important. And with motivation, understand it's an endurance game, it's a long-term game. And those habits that I mentioned, creating these morning and night routines, which I help my clients to do for their own respective lives, is what's
Mm-hmm.
going to help to really have that motivation to stick it out when the going gets tough, especially in the entrepreneurial journey, as you probably
Yep.
know. It's gonna happen, and it's also part of the game of success is that our
Mm.
internal wisdom is going to test us. Or do you really want this? How motivated are you to achieve this? And
Mm.
those trials we have, that's part of the game. It's a relay race. Are you willing to go to the next step, the next step? Do you really want this result? And so the way to stay motivated is to continue to focus on the why, the purpose, but also surrounding yourself with the people that will really, cheer you on if that is what is important and needed for you to stay motivated. But if that is not the case, then really understand what are the things I need to do to really then be motivated. Do I need to start doing these hobbies that I've
Mm.
neglected, or sort of activities I've neglected? Let me pick that up, because that's now going to help me to stay motivated.
Yes, and that is actually the time. So, for example, my hobbies are I play tennis.
Hmm.
And that is the time, it's like meditation for my body. It's like so yummy for my body. Yoga is so yummy for my body. It's like when I have a dessert, it's yummy for my taste buds, is
Yeah,
what yoga is for my body.
right.
I just feel yum all over. It's so delicious. So I think it's that, when I connect to what I really love, what I really enjoy doing, is when I create the space for more of that to show up in other forms, maybe in my career, finance, relationships, and other things.
Absolutely.
So this was really, really amazing, the insights that you share and how to cultivate motivation. And if there's anything else that you would like to share about what you do and how can people connect with you, you can share now.
Absolutely. But thank you for having me on. And I would say that, I do coaching, mindset coaching with NLP, but I also do consultations, and those are more for strategy based things. And also I give speeches as well. But I think the best way to reach out to me is through my website, mind-medication, or Instagram, my medication. And or shoot me an email at aden@mindmedication.com. And I'm also offering discovery calls as well. If there's any of you who are really just stuck in your thought process and really need to make that shift, I have discovery calls, and that is on my website. So mind-medication.com.
Yes, please do visit mind-medication.com also, because she is an amazing coach backed by scientific stuffs, scientific theories. So that would again make a lot of sense. So all those degrees that you mentioned earlier, I think they definitely bring in a lot of credibility along with what you're doing. So I wish you all the best for what you're up to. It's some amazing, amazing things that you're doing. And be safe and be in touch.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.